Hi, this is Laura. Welcome back to the next episode of Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, where we explore the intersection of triggers, trauma, justice, sacred activism, and spiritual medicine as pathways for personal and collective healing. Each month, we sit down with extraordinary guests who share their wisdom and offer at least three actionable steps to help you on your journey. This is more than just a conversation. It's a call to action, a chance to tap into the healing tools we all need to move forward as a species. As always, this is a commercial free, so please support our mission. You can become a Patreon, membership start for free, and make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube or most streaming platforms. Please share, comment, and always open to give us feedback. Help us grow and share the wisdom of what we're here to offer as the medicine that the world really desperately needs during these times that we are currently in. And boy, are we in some serious stuff. And you are going to be in for a treat today. I have spent 3 years trying to get this beautiful lady to come on this show. And honestly, you are going to want to hang out through the whole episode. Let me introduce you to my good friend, Rosanne Romiglio-Ashley. Sorry, Rosanne. I've known you for so long and I just did that to your name. Who is an award-winning designer, published author, versatile artist, and spiritual channel whose work bridges cultures, mediums, and the seen and unseen of Blackfoot, Maliseet, Micmac, French Canadian, and Italian descent. Rosanne walks the path of her lineage with reverence, devotion, and creative expression. An author, Indigenous wisdom keeper, and artist of the truest sense, her work flows quietly yet powerfully beneath the surface, like the undercurrent shaping everything it touches. Through story, image, and spirit-led transmission, she invites others into deeper remembrance of who they are and where they come from. 20 years ago, Rosanne received a poem, word for word, a transmission communicated to her by her ancestors in spirit. That transmission became her first book, Journey of a Red Soul, written under the name of her great-great-grandmother, Marie Dion. Marie hid her native identity so her children would not be taken and placed in residential schools. 2 generations later, Rosanne writes under her name to honor the lineage shaped by resilience, survival, and cultural reclamation. Her second book, Returning What's Sacred, chronicles her guided spiritual journey to return a sacred object to her people, an act of devotion, courage, and ancestral healing. Through her teachings, gatherings, and speaking engagements, including Make Your Life a Living Prayer, Rosanne invites others into a lived spirituality rooted in remembrance, responsibility, and reverence. Her work speaks to those who feel called to ancestral wisdom, embodied devotion, and the quiet power of living as prayer. I just can't say enough about this beautiful human. Rosanne and I probably go back 10, 11 years or something like that. And I remember Standing Rock was the big connector and having some of those conversations early on and watching Rosanne grow through this journey. And this is the book here, Returning What's Sacred. And I just, every time I open it, I feel like I can't get enough because I know her journey and It is the medicine the world needs. And it really goes into what a lot of us are craving is remembering our own indigenous roots, regardless of where you come from on the planet. Like it's those roots of culture and what our ancestors have gone through and what do we need to unpack to get there. I am so excited to have you today, Rosanne. Would you like to just introduce yourself and just let people get to know you a little bit?
So I'm feeling called to introduce myself in my Blackfoot language. So okay, nitsakwani tani ko mikutsi gai okaki. Um, yeah, well, thank you, Laura, for having me. I don't do these very often. This is not my realm. I rather work, person to person, but my ancestors have called me to make a bigger statement in the world and to bring the work now out in a bigger way. So here I am.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I remember having conversations about just how we embody, like, like my children are, for instance, like biracial, right? So it's embodying the lineage of both sides and how do we bridge those parts into the world as medicine, you know? And can you speak about what we hear a lot of things about prayer, right? Faith, have some faith, or prayer, but it's really kind of with a lot of dogma attached, right? Can you speak about make your life a living prayer and what does that really mean to you?
So a living prayer is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being fully present and true and choosing to trust yourself, no matter what is going on in the moment. It's so that you can inhabit your life fully and be in that moment, because in that moment is when God's spirit, your ancestors can reach you. If you go too far ahead or if you're stuck in the past, you've missed it, because it is this present moment that the magic happens. And this is the moment that you can really become the powerful force that you are in the world. Like everybody has come with a gift that nobody else has. I have a different gift than you. You have a different gift than everybody that you've talked to. No two people have the same gift that they've brought to the world right now that is especially needed right now. And if we don't learn how to listen in the moment and to trust our guidance and intuition, we're not going to be able to embody that gift or give that gift or share that gift. And
Mm.
so a lot of making your life a living prayer is actually about being your true self and being an instrument of service for the unseen realm, for God, Creator, the ancestors, to work through you from a place of love and not from fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation earlier today with somebody in another community I'm a part of, and we were talking about how we talk, like about ego and things, when it comes to prayer and things like that, and what does it mean to like check ego at the door? And I think also with prayer, we have to kind of unpack cultural conditioning in order to be present with what that looks like, right? And that's not easy. That's going through all these different phases of filters of indoctrination and cultural conditioning. And one of the things I said is that we make, especially in the spiritual communities, is that we think that like it's an attack, and it's not. It's we're all that way. And watching you, for instance, go through that stepping stone of unpacking a lot of those things and really getting centered has been a beautiful witness for me to watch you go through that as somebody watching you, you know, really anchor into some of those ways, right? And that's not easy. That's not an easy ask. That takes
No,
courage.
people make it too complicated. Everybody makes it too complicated, really. And I think they make it complicated because they think they need to be perfect in their asking. All you need to do is be grateful in the moment that you're given right now, in the moment you're breathing in right now. Prayer is embodiment. It's not
Mm.
petition. It's not, please give me this. It's, I am grateful for this moment. What can I do now? Right? And
Ooh, so that's a big distinction right there, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of us, especially if you like, I grew up Catholic, right? Well, in Russian Orthodox, so there's a lot of God, dear God, I want this, help me with this, versus thank you for allowing me to do X, Y, and Z. Thank you for guiding me on my path. That's a different way of doing prayer.
well, I mean, I grew up Catholic too.
Yeah.
So I know all about that. But I guess, did prayer differently. You know, it's not that I didn't, when I was younger, do, but, please help me prayers, which everybody does. But
Right.
it's from this place now that I understand that's not how you change things. You change
Right.
things by being grateful for what you have, whatever that is right now. Be grateful that there's breath in your body, that you have another minute to do something differently. You know,
Mm.
my recently my ancestors came to me and they said, um, it's not your time to walk on, what we call, passing over. It's not your time to walk on. But you have accomplished the things that you have set out to accomplish in this life. So now being in service gets to be a bigger game because,
Mm.
once you check all the boxes, oh, I came here to do this, 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 and this, or I've done this, this, and this in my
Right.
life, at this stage of my life, I've done the career, I've done all the things. What is it now? How can I be in service now to help people as a walking witness um, to a different way of being? And it's a very simple way. People make it so complicated. They think you got to do all the things. You don't.
Well, again, isn't that conditioning? Isn't that how we're taught? Isn't that kind of like the patriarchal structures too at the same
Mm-hmm,
time?
hmm hmm
And it kind of brings it back as I remember being like, for instance, in Catholic school, and I was in second grade, and they had, oh, who are you going to pray for? And I went, well, I want to pray for my grandfather because he died of of a heart attack. And then, the school did what they did to contact my parents and whatever to say, oh, we're sorry to hear the passing, and only to find out he died a week later. And I almost got expelled because I obviously didn't understand that what I was doing was premonition. And so my
hmm
question to you is like, especially like you said, you didn't do prayers that way, right? So when did you first become aware that your ancestors were actively guiding you?
Well, I was always connected to what I thought were the angels. So, and I was connected to the angels. I'd be in Catholic Mass with my Italian grandmother and watching these things fly around. And I thought they were all angels. Didn't know some of them were spirits. They weren't all angels, but um, I just called them that. And I had this connection to the unseen world since I was a child that I was really told to keep my mouth shut. My mother was worried they were going to put me in a home or take me away, or so she just made sure. She was a nurse, so she had seen some things. And so she just made sure that from very, very young age, I kept my mouth shut, didn't say a word. And what I ended up doing is channeling it into my artwork, right? Even at a very young age. and but it also created like a barrier with my sisters because I couldn't tell them things, and
Mm.
this is what was happening. So, I felt very different from the very beginning. But I would say I moved to Maine 30 years ago. And when I moved to Maine, um, I was a little Italian Catholic girl with a new career move, going to be a creative director. And yeah, and I'm pulling into this town for my interview. And all of a sudden, I hear this male voice say really loud to me, "You're moving here. You got the job." And I was like, "What?"
Mm.
I'm like, and I'm like, is this my angel? Like, I knew I got the job before I even walked in to have the interview. And it was a matter of like, it was like the domino effect. Like, I got the job immediately. I got a place to live, and I move up there. It was the first time in my life that I was alone, without family, without friends, in an apartment. I had a
No
beautiful
distraction.
apartment. No distraction. And I had a beautiful apartment. I lived on the water in Maine, and I had
Mm.
this cute little apartment over a tea, tobacco, and wine shop, you know. Um and I earned a couple of two dads that lived downstairs, that kind of, it was like I was being protected everywhere. But um I wasn't in that apartment very long before my ancestors started waking me up in the middle of the night, scaring me half to death. And I didn't know who they were. I I was like freaking out. And it's funny because my Blackfoot grandfather that speaks to me, he has said, there's a lot of wannabes in the world, but we're gonna say that you were I didn't want to be.
Mm.
I
I've been
didn't.
there. I've been there.
He's like, you did not want any part of your native culture. You did not
Oh,
want any part of it.
oh,
He,
interesting.
and it's recently that he's had this conversation with me because I forgot about this. I went like running to a priest, freaking out because they
Mm.
were speaking to, I didn't know what to do. And what do? I go to this little town not far. I go to the closest Catholic church I can go get to, and I walk into this mass, and the priest had just come back from a 10-year station at a reservation, and he brought all this native stuff into the mass. It was like I was being
Wow.
surrounded to wake up.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But I do recall, like, I know in my own personal journey, right? When I started seeing things, there's like this, I think it's part of the conditioning that at least I feel like I had with the church, right? Of like all of these things were evil. And I had to really sit with unpack because I spent, I think, 10 years running away from that or trying to shut it down because I was conditioned like it was bad. And I think it took me like 20 or so years to really understand, like my grandmother who could read tea leaves and my aunt could other to channel other things, and my dad used his abilities as a physician, where he was able to diagnose cancer and appendicitis with no tests because he listened to his intuition and messages from the spirit world, and but it wasn't really talked about because of that kind of conditioning. And I think too, Willie wasn't as okay. There was still like this shaming piece, that happens. And it
I
took a
don't think
lot for me.
I, I don't
Did
think
you
I
have,
ran into the shame part.
you
I
didn't?
just
I did. Yeah,
I didn't
I
run
did.
into that part. I was afraid. Like I thought there was some dark energy. Like I didn't think that the voices were dark though. I was like I wasn't quite sure what was happening.
Mm,
And I had moments when I was younger when I was very, very afraid, and I was dealing with some dark energies
mm.
in reality, and it wasn't a made up fear. I was facing something. And, I talk about it in my first book that I had to deal with, and I had to grow up really quickly because of that. but I was never really worried about, you know, doing anything wrong with this because I've had this gift and I always considered talking to the angels to be a sanctuary.
Mm.
So it wasn't to me, you know, something to worry about. I was just scared to death. I mean, I was having dreams and being woken up in the middle, and I'd never had any of this
Yep.
happen to me. So part of the way
We used to
that
be saying, I
they
gotta learn how to open and close those windows and be like, hey, I used to say, hey, you know what? I need to get some sleep. Come back at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning at like 8 a.m. and we'll have a chat.
it was too early. I didn't know I could do that. It was way too early in the journey. And I do remember though that when I first like the first time that I knew everything was fine with the messages is when they gave me a prayer and
Mm.
word for word prayer. And I knew it was coming from a very, very loving place. And I wrote it down. I thought the angels gave it to me. I wrote it down like word for word. I've said it. I put it in my first book. I pass it around. I share it. And for 30 years I've been saying this prayer, and it's been very, very helpful. So it was almost like they were
Is that
showing
the
me,
one you put on the mugs?
yeah, the mugs, the bookmarks, the yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I have one of those mugs, by the way.
Oh, do you? It's been a long time. I haven't done those in a long time.
Yeah.
Yep. So, that happened first. They did this in increment stages. And back then there was no, we didn't have cell phones. So we didn't have I had to like really search out information. Once I started understanding who they were, that they were my relatives, they asked me to, travel up to the Gaspé Peninsula and find my family. And
Mm.
they literally guided me. Like I had maps, but I didn't know where I was going. I didn't speak French. I'm driving on these roads in the middle of Canada in areas that I only knew where I was because they told me to go there.
Mm.
And so I had to learn, 30 years ago, I had to learn to trust. It's like had to learn to trust their guidance, in a very, very deep way because of the journey that they were guiding me to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, I think because like if you think of people that call themselves channelers or mediums, I think the difference of what you're talking about and describing is really anchoring in from a place of remembrance and ego destruction and all these other things that kind of like are the different differentials versus like a lot of people can channel, but like this is different. This is really deepening, it's anchoring in, and it's really listening and having faith from a different lens as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Because
because you're because
my ego wasn't involved in this at all. My ego was all in my design business. I
yeah.
had, not saying I didn't have an ego because I was an award-winning designer and I let people know about it. So it's not that I didn't have an ego, but I didn't have an ego when it came to this.
Mm,
This
yes.
was too new. This was too unknown. This was, I grew up knowing that we were part Indian. Well, what did that mean? I grew up Italian, basically, with my Italian family. And yes, we had some Indian blood. Didn't know what that meant. Had no idea. Didn't
Mm.
realize that it was going to become this huge part of my life, Didn't know
And
I
it's
would.
been beautiful to witness the growth in that area of you reclaiming that part of yourself and your ancestry, going from protective energy, and minimizing that part of your lineage to now reclaiming it, and that's powerful. And all of us should be like, we are in those times of reclaiming our ancestry, reclaiming our lineages, right?
Yeah.
And so when it came to, writing your books, and I noticed like you write it under Marie Dion. Can you explain what does it mean to write under the name of your great great grandmother, Marie Dion?
Um, well, I'm going to backtrack just a little before we get into
Okay, go
it.
ahead.
So I wanted to say that, especially during these times, a lot of us are the answered prayers of our ancestors, no matter what our lineage is. And in my particular case, I was the seventh generation of my Blackfoot grandfather. And he was very tapped in and he did the prayers prior to the occupation. So when they were starting to hear from the spirits what was coming, they did he told me this. They did huge ceremonies, huge, because they were told by the spirits that their generations between where they were then to the seventh, there was going to be generations in between that were going to be totally disconnected to our way of life. And then it was about waking up the seventh generation. Now, I'm not just seventh generation Blackfoot. My Wolastoqey Maliseet is my grandfather's generation. You know, it's not like all my blood lineage is from far away. It's not. Marie Dion was Mi'kmaq and Blackfoot. So, and her mother was born in Saskatchewan, which I've found out recently, and she's buried in
Mm,
Maniwaki. So there's this crazy way that our people were dispersed. And so the fact that any of us are, standing here as a representation of our ancestors is an answered prayer. Does that make sense?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, but I think for a lot of people, especially in the times that we are in, I think a lot of people, at least some of the people I'm working with right now, they're feeling the despair. They're not necessarily seeing that they are the answered prayer to their own ancestors.
Well, that's why I want to put words to that. And that's why I
Yeah.
started off this conversation saying that the gifts that everybody has come in with at this time, nobody else can take up that job that you came here to do. If you don't do it, nobody else has got that combination of gifts that they can present to have that done and do their part in this time that we're living in. It's everybody is critically important. Everyone, everybody's work, everybody's gifts, right?
Mhm.
So Marie, my great grandmother Marie, our because of our Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey lineage is from like the Gaspé Peninsula. Our skin is not dark, and so she could blend in and pretend she was French, which is
Mhm.
what she did because she had a lot of children and they were taking the children and putting them in residential schools. And in the horrific stories that I've heard of what's happened in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and all over the continent with that it's just horrific what they had to deal with. And they're still dealing with the trauma of that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, she just pretended she wasn't native and was able there was it's funny because right now I'm actually writing their stories. There's another book coming, my grandmother's stories, and they're starting to tell me what they had to do to protect our family, which was
Mhm.
just unbelievable. And so, yeah, they've had me read about 7 books about the fur trade because I had no idea. And it's really interesting, and I'm yeah,
Yeah.
to get
I
into
mean, I'd
that
be
right
curious.
now.
Yeah,
Mm.
no. I mean, I know you've shared some of that, and I know like with me even doing like my Irish ancestries, and like um, about 20 minutes south of where my husband is from, they just dug up 70 babies from a similar thing to like what they did to natives in the estates, but it was done through the church, the Catholic and Protestant church, called the Magdalene Laundries. And so that's where they would put, misbehaved children, or they would put, this is what Sinead O'Connor was trying to preach,
Mhm.
and or unwed mothers that were pregnant, and then they would tell them that their babies died, and then they would um, basically legally traffic them for money, and then tell the mothers, under the guise of adoption, and say that your baby's died. Or they would just let their babies die, and like they just dug up in a sewer tank 70 something. I forget, I think the number's up now, but it took them 20 years just to get the Irish government to allow this. And that went on for, I believe, like over 300-400 years, because it didn't end until 1994.
Yeah.
Magdalene laundries did not end until 1994. So this is like a practice, right? That you might find that crosses cultures, and how do we heal and repair this, right?
Well,
And
we heal and repair it by doing our work, by healing ourselves.
yeah,
And so I'm actually gonna I was gonna talk about this a little later, but when we are doing our own healing, when I was first started on this journey 30 years ago, I had all these things to heal from. And but as I healed from them, the ripple effect, what I was told from the grandmothers, not only went forward, but it also went back. And so every time I healed from something, I healed them from their trauma and what they went through. And how can you not try to fully heal in your own self when you know it's going to heal those that come before you and after you?
can we talk about what that means? Because from the white person's lens, right,
Mm.
people may say healing is taking a pharmaceutical drug, getting a procedure, psychotherapy, going and getting a massage, a lot of things, because when I hear healing, the kind of healing you're talking about, it's really addressing facing hard truths, looking into, you cannot have like the gifts of what that generation has without also honoring the travesties of what those generations went to. It's both.
Hmm.
Like I see a lot of folks that mistake and they want the medicine, but they don't want to honor the other piece.
So here I sit, whose father was a pharmacist, whose
Mm-hmm.
mother was a nurse, and I heal with herbs, and I heal with teas, and I heal with medicines. But my father, when I was growing up, I grew up in that pharmacy. I grew up in a pharmacy for 27 years. And
Mm.
I watched so many people, my grandparents included, give their power away to this false god called medicine. And I, for years, watched people just come to my father in tears, for help, help heal me. I mean, he wasn't a doctor, he was a pharmacist, but he would open that pharmacy in the middle of the night for people. He would be in the back room mixing medicines. I watched him mix medicines and make tablets and do these things. Um, and it's very, very interesting to me that I just knew that there was another way. I just knew it. And I knew that the people were giving their power away to these doctors.
Mm.
I know that's changing now. I can see it. There's a blending happening now where, um, and if you read my next book, you'll understand how I know that. There's a healing happening, and there's an understanding of medicine now as frequency, which now takes into account all of the vibrational medicines, all of the herbal, acupuncture is my go-to. I love it, you know. So, I don't have any knee pain anymore. I've had ACL repairs and all these things all these years. And I'll tell you, the only thing that has made me at my age now able to not have to worry about any of that or have any pain is acupuncture, you know?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, needles. I'm like, oh, needles. Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and for me, coming from a place where I was diagnosed with complex PTSD from, repetitive amounts of domestic violence and sexual assault, that they gave me, I think at one point, 5 pharmaceutical medications, and I wasn't getting better. I was actually getting worse. And it was actually going through, like what you're talking about, like the prayer, the reclamation of remembering that I was intuitive to begin with, that remembering that I had these abilities. And then Jikken and Reiki for me, like for acupuncture was for you, but Jikken and Reiki was the catalyst for me that got me off of all my meds where I
See.
didn't need them anymore. And now I have ways to deal with so-called triggers, right?
Mhm.
And it's also reframing. Triggers aren't your enemy. Triggers aren't the bad thing. Triggers are just the GPS to show you turn right or turn left. And I think that's also changing the relationship when that happens as well, you
Yeah.
know?
But
And
also, it's not just triggers. Like people need to pay attention to that. They also need to pay attention to things that bring them joy
absolutely.
or excite them. Because, if you find yourself doing something every day that you just go, "Oh, I have to do this again," you need to pay attention because you are doing something against your soul's direction.
Truth.
And we all have
Mhm.
to do things to survive. I'm not saying that we all don't have to like do things to get the bills paid and whatever. But with that said, there is something that everybody who's living in this day and age right now has come here to do. And nobody can tell you, like even a medium or something like that is not going to be able to say, oh, your job is and your purpose is. No, you need to find this yourself. And you're the only one that can find it.
Yeah.
And then if you can't, it will not go found. It would not get found because you will not be able to fulfill it if you do not make the journey inward.
Yeah, and I think it also goes to the aspect of your journey here on the earth is bigger than your story,
Yep.
right? It's bigger than the story. And I know, like, when I coach or I guide people, I'm always finding and having to help them understand that the story is keeping them stuck.
Yep. We have a teaching
It's
about the medicine, it's like a medicine wheel teaching. And I talk about this a lot. And basically what happens is, you know, when you're supposed to do something and the synchronicities align for you to do it, a doorway opens for you. It's not always 100% comfortable. It it's always comes with some angsty feelings, but you know it's right. And your guides and your angels have done a lot of work to get this door open for you to go through, right? If you get scared and don't go through it, you're going around the medicine wheel again, or you're going around another year or two or three before you're ready for them to realign everything for you to go through now a window. Because the door, the biggest, easiest way for you to have gone through and get to where you needed to go was the first time. But if your
mm,
fears stopped you or you didn't have enough courage or whatever it was, you'll get another opportunity to go through a window.
yeah. I think there's like all sorts of teachings. And again, it's a remembering and of our own ancestry. I know, but I also know from like my Japanese teachers that from if I understand this correctly, that they say, and understanding the founder of Reiki when he was going through his own personal journey, for instance, Mikao Usui, the teaching was that it was like every 7 years, if you didn't master enlightenment, it was like every 7 years you had an opportunity. And then it was like capped at like 44 or something like that, age 44. Like
Yeah,
if you
that's
didn't,
actually a different teaching. That's the lesson teaching.
mm,
So that is like if like say you're in a very bad situation,
mm,
and you've got to break out of an abusive relationship or whatever, and you do that.
mm,
you will your life will take you on a spiral rotation. And when you come exactly over that same point, we have this teaching, you're going to get a little bit, it's going to be less severe, but maybe a similar person is going to walk into your life. Just see if you learn that lesson and don't fall for it again. It sounds like the similar teaching, like it's so many years or so many cycles where you hit that teaching again, and it happens about 3 times where you
Yeah.
are introduced to the same type of person or the same type of situation so that you learn to hold your power. And you can
Mm.
learn it the first time and never have to deal with it again, but not everybody can do that. They sometimes have to, they get, they're like, why am I facing the same mirror again, this kind of person again? Why am I dealing with the same
You mean like
situation
people like
again?
me, the Irish, the Russian, the Ukrainians, the stubborn sides?
Yeah, we gotta do it again. We gotta do it again. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
The stubborn sides, right? Can we talk about this book here, Returning What's Sacred? And for those who are local, by the way, to Massachusetts, New England, New York, Rosanne will be coming to Healing with Spirit on March 28th to share the teachings in this book, as well as teachings of Make Your Life a Living Prayer. So, just as a preface for those who might be interested. But can you really kind of share, like, what does it mean to return what's sacred beyond just like the literal act?
Well, I'm going to start this conversation with this happened very unexpectedly.
Mm.
I had already written my first book. I thought it was the only book I was ever going to write because I didn't write it. My ancestors did. And I had to finish living through it. They have recently we've recently updated that book together, and my grandfather's written an ending chapter for it, so it's going to have a second edition. But um I really, I'm an artist. I never said I was an author. Like, and so this happened very unexpectedly. I was not expecting this at all. And your path in your life can be this way. So, my husband and I, we hunt, or we did hunt. We're getting too old for that now, but we used to hunt our own deer meat and, with reverence and do ceremonies. So he wanted to go to a gun show, and I'd never been, and I'd be like, all right, I'll go with you, as a supportive wife, And there was another woman that came with us, a friend of his. And we no sooner walk into this place. And we're ironically in Plymouth, of all places, right? And there was this white guy selling native stuff, and I just made a beeline for him. I was like, what is he doing here? And when I get to his table, he had a ceremonial sacred pipe put together with eagle feathers on it for ceremony for sale. And I lost my mind. I was not emotionally balanced that day. I went up one side of him, down the other, and I said, that's it. What are you doing with this? You're not allowed to have this. How do you have this? Why do you have it put together? Do you understand what that means? Lost my mind. And do you realize that you have eagle feathers on there and I'm going to go get you arrested? And I turn around to go to the cops that were at the doorway because there's always cops at a gun show. And and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And he took it apart, he put it under the table. I go, oh, that's not gonna, that's not gonna save you. And the girl that we're with is on the other side, like listening to this whole interaction, and she says, she's an artist. Why don't you trade her for it? Because I'm going, you can't sell this. I can't buy this. And he's like, I'm not going to just give it to you. I go, you're not allowed to have it. Like there was this whole thing happening, right? So he goes, is that true? And I said, yes. And so we made an agreement that I wouldn't get him arrested as a white guy with eagle feathers. And he would meet me in the morning to um to trade before the show opened outside. My husband would take me and we would do that. And then so this was very unexpected. I'm just living my life, not expecting anything to happen. And here this thing is presented to me, right? I can't, I can't let this go. This is too big a deal. So my husband and I get in the car or the truck to drive there the next morning. And in my psychic vision, I am flanked by warriors on both sides, and they are not my ancestors. They're all on horseback. They are ready to go into battle.
Mm.
Like we're lined up with them, ready to go. And I'm like, "Oh shit." I'm like, he doesn't give me this, he's in big trouble. Like these guys were pissed. And I had no idea like the level of what we were dealing with at this time. I was just doing what I thought was I was supposed to do. So we get there. I had put all my artwork. I had sculptures. I had paintings. I put everything in the car because I didn't know what he wanted. I figured he'd take one or two things. No, he took everything before he would give me that pipe. Everything.
Oh,
He was
oh,
so
what a
greedy.
greedy,
Oh my
greedy.
God. So I feel like I rescue a baby. Like I got it in my hands. I'm like, get me out of here. And he pulls this pipe bag out in this arrogant tone. And he said, well, what will you give me for this? And I go, first of all, that doesn't go with it. And second of all, we're done here. You can sell that. And we turned around and we got in the car. And I was just, I was hyperventilating. I was so mad.
Mm.
you know, but I felt like I had rescued a baby. And so that's what started the journey that became that book.
Mm.
I thought once I rescued it, I did my job. Nope.
So, what did it look like in that journey? Because it was like a 10-year journey, wasn't it? It was like a
It
10-year
turned
journey.
into a 10-year journey
Yeah.
that
So
I,
what did that journey like look like for you in ways of like devotion and courage?
it was one day at a time. It was one day at a time. It was, you know, I was the next weekend, I was going to see a friend of mine who was Lakota from like cultural survival. And I'd never been to a Lakota sweat lodge. And I was going, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring it to him and he's going to know what to do with this. And I'll be able to hand it to him and he can, take it back or whatever. Right. Nope. So it wasn't that easy. Like we finished the lodge and, I'll never forget this. We're friends. We're really good friends. And he says to me, well, I got an answer about it. And I'm like, oh, good. What do we do? Like, what has to happen? And he's like, you need to take it back to the Black Hills of South Dakota. I said, I have to. What? My answers are not out from there. I don't know anybody out there. What? I'm like, freaking freaked out on the guy. I'm like, can't you just take it?
Nope.
Nope. It became my journey and my mission for the healing of this piece. It was like it became my responsibility. And that's what took a 10-year journey. Like,
Mm.
and I can't even describe to you. I mean, you have to read the book. I could not have anticipated
Mm.
how I would have to grow up, what I would have to learn, where I would end up. It was a total trust fall on spirit. And I learned a lot. And yes, I have gifts, but it wasn't just about that. It was about growing as a person. And it was about healing something that really should never have happened, you know?
That's the reclamation and the remembering piece, right?
Yeah.
That anybody who is in America, and I'm speaking especially to the Irish diaspora, um, who many of us have forgotten how or why our ancestors came here. And it's something that we really have to, we're in those times, the window's open now, you know? And speaking of that, like you talked about responsibility, right? So, what responsibility comes with, being that bridge between the seen and unseen. Can you talk about that?
Well, I I have no choice but to walk in integrity. I have no choice. They, I have made a commitment to them and they have made a commitment to me over the years. And when you are dealing with the unseen, you can't hide anything. You can't hide thoughts. You can't hide um, anything that you do. So it's about they're gonna, if I do something, they're gonna call me on the table for it, you know? And it's
Can
really
you?
about having the courage to face the unknown,
Mm.
you know?
Can you talk about, because this is something I see a lot of folks that are Caucasian making mistakes. There's the teaching of, well, as long as you have good intention, nothing else matters, right? And you and I both have had conversations in the past about treading on, especially white folks, treading on Indigenous teachings without the proper relationships and what that can mean. Can you share some of those weavings and how folks that may not be of Indigenous American or Indigenous Canadian descent in how to show up in proper relationship?
I think this is a very tricky topic.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of people that are searching for meaning. And um that this is a very layered thing. You've got a lot of people that are in, let me just backtrack here. So, in my first book, my ancestors tell the story about me that I didn't expect. That I'd had a dream one night. I had a dream that there was this beautiful black woman sitting. We were in this like somewhere by the water, and we're in this like wooden shack thing. And I walk up to her and I am mad. And I'm like, look at the color of my skin. Look at this. Why am I this color? I was like, I don't want to be this color. And she looked at me and she said, honey, she said, you hated them. And any race that you hate, you have to experience.
Mm.
And she said, yeah, you got native blood in this lifetime, but you had to grow up white. You had to grow up and experience what it was like to be white because you hated them. I lived through the genocide. I lived through and I came in remembering. So
Mm.
not everybody has this. This is a very rare thing, but I came in remembering like my first memory, I was running in a massacre, running for my life. Like I was like a baby and I'd wake up screaming because I was running, running, running. And, I went from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. I lived through the genocide and I kept dying in these incarnations. So, of course, I hated them. They were murdering us. I was living through a genocide, right? So, but the whole point is to love your neighbor as yourself. The whole, like Jesus says this, love your neighbor as yourself, because guess what? Anybody you hate, anybody you judge, guess what? You are going to have to experience that. Now, it's funny too. I know this is a little off topic from what you're saying, but my ancestors told when they were teaching me what when you cross over, when you walk on and you have your life review,
Mhm.
I always thought kind of like watching a TV, you get to watch your whole life, you know. They're like,
Right.
mm-mm. You have to experience all the emotions as if you were the other person from the ones that you hurt, from the ones that you loved. So whether that experience is pleasant or not depends on how you've treated others. And
Mm.
so it ties back to what Jesus says, treat others as you would like to be treated, because you are going to have to experience that. And so here I am, part native, part white, coming through this life. You've got a lot of people who, when the genocide was happening, I remember hearing this from that other life, those other lifetimes. I remember hearing the elders say to the soldiers that we will be reborn as your sons and daughters, that we would come back as. So you've got a lot of people that resonate with native ways. And really, what that means is not to have them turn around and try to appropriate some of this stuff and do some of this work. But really, what that means is a connection to the earth, your Celtic connection to the earth, your Italians love to garden, connection to the earth. It's all about reconnecting with our mother, the earth. And the only thing that Native people kind of have as part of our, we're not going to speak for all of us, but we understand the earth. We understand the unseen realm. We understand how that's the teachings that we bring.
Mm.
But it's about listening to the earth. And it's about a teaching about not being greedy, not taking more
Right.
than your share, not being afraid that you're not going to have enough. You
I
know,
think that's the decolonizing aspect, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're they say, like, white Europe was the most colonized of them all because it goes back so long. We have forgotten our own ways. Whether you're Slavic, Germanic, Celtic, whatever that is, it's like we have forgotten our ways. And I don't necessarily think, like, I know Ireland's doing a fantastic job at trying to reclaim a lot of the way. So are some of the others, or in reclaiming the ways that were stolen from, like, the church, from the Romans, from the
but it's
like.
every
Yeah,
lineage. It's about returning to your own dignity in your own lineage.
yeah,
In your own lineage. It's not one lineage is better than another lineage.
no,
It's about finding out who you are
right.
and what gifts you brought. You know, some of the Celtic people are very connected to the fairy realm, so they're very connected to the earth. Why isn't that a cool thing? Why do you have to go and try to do something native when you have that? Like, everybody has their own thing,
And I
you
think
know?
that goes back to, they want the medicine, which is the appropriation piece, without honoring the harm that has been withheld. So it's
But
like you can't have over the,
you're never gonna get the medicine if you're not doing it in the right way.
yeah.
You can't make the spirits do something for you because you're gonna do a ceremony. They're gonna see through that in half a minute. They know you better than you know yourself. And the
Yes.
times that we're going into now, people are actually, there's a big split going on right now energetically. There's a group of people who are so afraid to change and are living in fear. And then you've got another group who are following their hearts and are going towards love. I'm going to talk about those people.
Mhm.
Those people are finding their way. If you are so fearful, it's going to cloud you. It's going to cloud where you're going. It's going to cloud your decisions. We understand creator as love. So if you're not going to follow your heart, where are you going? It becomes your daily life becomes a reverence. You know, people are like, well, what can I do right now? Everything's crazy. Then you go inside yourself or you go in the woods and you find a place where you can find some peace. Because if you can settle your soul into a peaceful place, that simple act, that ripple effect is going to affect many other people because it affects the collective. Isn't that what the monks that just walked cross country,
I
wasn't
was just
that
gonna
their
say,
whole
I think we have
teaching?
forgotten. We have
That wasn't
forgotten
that
the
their whole
power of our
teaching?
words.
It's not
Yeah,
even. If you
it's
can't
the
go and be in
presence.
these crowds, you go and you sit in your own chair and you do your own rosary beads. You pray, you do whatever it is that you can do to bring yourself to a prayerful place. Maybe
Mm.
you make a little altar. Maybe, you do your Celtic altars, like whatever you've got to do
Yeah.
to get you to that place because that's what it's about. It's not
Yes.
about the grand gesture. It's about not having, it's right now, it's about simplicity. It
It
really
to me, it's to me, it's about when you start practicing, and every teacher I've had, every elder I have studied with over the decades, the one thing that seems to be synonymous, you're right, it's not about the periodic grand gesture things. It's how do I implement 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. And before you know it, it's like it's the repetition and it's the continuation, it's the discipline of doing it on the regular. And before you know it, you are living from that place every day. You don't have to make an effort because it becomes part of who you are, right?
the word discipline always throws me off, but I
Yeah,
would say a nice simple gesture because I'm so rebellious.
I
Don't
know.
tell me what to do. But like for me, everybody's like, well, morning practice, meditate. Well, all I could do was get my coffee in the morning, light my smudge, and do my prayer cards. Like that's my little ritual in the morning, you know? And if I can't get outside because we have 30 inches of snow out there like we do right now, you know, that's going to be the thing that anchors me, and if I can start my day from that place, I'm going to have a better day,
Yep.
you know?
So, how can someone begin, or what would you say for somebody who wants to begin connecting maybe with their ancestors if they feel, disconnected or unsure of their own lineage? I know you kind of touched a little bit about that already, but
I would say this is really going to be about what are the things that do you feel comfortable with? What is it the thing like, are you comfortable sitting there doing mandala beads or prayer beads or rosary beads? Is that something that makes you comfortable? Do you feel connected to spirit when you do that? Do you feel connected to spirit if you light a candle? Do you feel connected to
candle
spirit?
magic is a big thing for me.
Yeah. But I mean, whatever it
Yeah.
is that makes you feel connected to something greater than yourself, that that it can be a simple, simple gesture. And I think if people s- start there and make their prayer a real living thing in their lives, you know, as we move forward from here, our ability to telepathically communicate, our our ability to connect with the unseen world is going to increase. So when I say your thoughts are not going to be private, you're not going to be able to hide those things in yourself that you don't want anybody to see. So
It's
guess what?
already happening. Right.
Why not start to heal them now?
Mhm.
Why not start to heal them now? Because we're going there, people. That's where we're going. We are evolving. And that means no more hidden agendas. That means no more hurting each other to better somebody over another person. This is a new way of being in the world. It's not about me having a bigger following than you and more people on my list. I mean, all that stuff makes me crazy now. I can't even, I mean, I come from a marketing, design background and I can't even deal with it anymore. You know,
All I know is that every rooted teacher or elder I have studied with don't have massive followings, or they're not even on social media at all.
yeah,
Every single rooted teacher, they're
because
really
it's
not.
not real.
It's not
It's not,
performative. Social media is performative.
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like I have my own business, like I get it, like I have to be able to share. And for me, like what I find therapeutic for me is I write and I share content and I share how my processing is, but um but yeah, I struggle with the overproductions of
Well,
some things, and it's
I
challenging.
wanna I wanna say that to help give some tools for people to try,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
So, you know, journaling, okay, you said journaling is one of the best things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
Whether you do it in the morning, whether you do it at night, doesn't matter. But before you start to journal, get yourself into a place of gratitude. If you want your ancestors to speak through you, call them in. Call them in, not from a place of fear, call them in from a place of love. And just put that pen on that paper and ask them a question. And then don't even think about it and just start writing. You're going to be very surprised what comes out of that pen because they are waiting to communicate with you, waiting. And there's something about, I think I heard the monks say this too. There's something about pen on paper.
Yeah, this is not typing,
Something.
like pen and paper, like it's the
There's
brain
something
processes
about,
it differently.
yeah, because your hand can just write without your brain getting in the way. Because it's not about paying attention to what you're writing as it's coming out of the pen.
Yeah.
Write, and then read it when it's done. And it's just a really great way for people to start to talk to their own lineage and their own ancestors. Does that make sense? Yep.
Mhm. So
Yep.
speaking of that, if your ancestor, Marie Dion, could speak directly to the listeners today, what do you think she might have to say?
Well, she has been speaking, but I think that her, so she, when she, so this, let me tell the story of why I'm using her name.
Mhm.
So when my first book was getting ready to be published, I was actually trying to get it into Hay House, and Louise Hay was still alive. And the woman who was like my salesperson was trying to get her, was like, okay, we're going to have Louise read your book. And by the time the book finished to the time where it went there, Louise had passed away. And I think Penguin was the publisher that purchased them at the time. And so I got caught up in that whole like staying a self-publisher and all of that. But they demanded, because of the way that my book was channeled, they demanded that I use a pen name because I was going to use my real name.
Mm,
And I got really upset about that.
mm.
And I I had a vision where Marie um walked into a kitchen in front of me and there was a counter and she slams her fist on the counter and she demands I use her name. Number one, she can clear her karma and claim her culture. And number two, she can protect me. And it was the right thing. And being able to speak as her has really been amazing. So
Mm.
I would say for her, the message would be is don't hide and remember who you are. Love is stronger than fear. Your survival carries meaning. The fact that here, I'm the seventh generation, is a huge deal. The fact that I I'm the only one that has brought this ways back to my family. Nobody else travels to Canada with me. Nobody else understands my whole lineage. I have to write the next book before I really can share with my family who's who and what's what, because they all want to know. But I really have to finish doing the work. My aunt started the genealogy. I'm finishing it, but it's carrying on. So, where was I going with that? Um,
You were talking about your great great grandmother and what she would have to say.
she would have to say, yeah, I lost my thought now. Sorry. That's
That's
what happens
okay.
at my age. But
No,
it'll
no,
come
because the
back.
part is that you said what you had to say on that
Mhm,
part. That's all.
mhm.
So now for those who are listening, what would you hope people would experience when they come and attend your gatherings, or like the one that you're going to be doing at the Healing with Spirit Studio in Hingham at the end of March?
Well, I would say it's the same. I do some personal readings with people, but I try to, in everything that I do, teach people how to trust themselves and how to seek their own answers so that they don't need me. I don't want to be the perpetual person that somebody comes to over and over and over again. I want to teach self-empowerment. I want to teach people to be able to hold their own power or be able to go into the woods and to find their own answers. I want people to learn how to connect to nature. I want to be able to teach these things so that they know what to do in those moments where they're having an emotional breakdown. Everybody has them. Everybody has a bad day. But you
We're
need to,
having a bad time right now in
yeah,
general.
but
And when
but
this
you need,
podcast comes out, we're going to be in the middle of Mercury retrograde.
I know. But people need tools in their toolbox, you know? Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So my my niece has had a baby recently. And before the baby was born, I was falling asleep and all of a sudden I was surrounded by all my grandmothers and they were having a party, like celebration party. Never seen them like this before. They're always, when they came to me, they were always very serious. We had things to talk about. They were having a party. And I'm like, what is this about? And they're like, you're the seventh generation, but this baby coming in, he's the ninth generation. We have survived. Hear that. We have survived. If
Mm.
you are here, you have survived. You've survived this colonization. You've survived this time that has all these, thousands of years that have gotten us here. And now you are the living, breathing answer to your ancestors' prayers in this day and age.
Right.
You have what it takes, or you wouldn't be here right now. So,
Mm.
what I want to do is teach you the tools that you need here and now, how to go in, how to find your own answers, because you're all able to do this. I'm not special. I'm not more special than anybody else.
We are the future ancestor, right? We're the future ancestor in training.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, if you feel
Mm.
called and you want to come and hang with me for a day,
There we go.
it'll
March
be fun.
28th at Healing with Spirit in Hingham. And how else can others find you? What would be the best way for people to find you?
Well, if they're interested in the book, I would say go to mariedion.com. If you're interested in any of the events with the book or that, I mean, I do keep a different persona. Um, but if you want to learn about me in total, my artwork, my business, fourwindsoneBreath.com. My
Mm.
ancestors gave me that business name years ago because I do four different things, one breath, one person. Four
Mm.
winds also depicts our sacred directions and our ceremonies. So fourwindsoneBreath.com. Mhm.
And for those who are interested in coming to the Healing with Spirit event at the end of March, every participant will get a copy of, Returning with Sacred Book. And I promise you, I'm not the best reader even though I'm an author of 2 books right here. Um, I am a slow reader, and this is probably one of the easiest, like really take you in kind of reads that I have read in a very, very long time. And I'm not just saying that because she's my friend, but it's the truth. Anybody who knows me, I speak truth regardless of who it is. And it has been a beautiful, thank you so much, Rosanne, for finally saying yes to coming on. And thank you for those who, if you liked this episode, please make sure that you click like, make sure you subscribe to whatever platform you are listening this on, whether it's on YouTube or your favorite streaming platform. You can learn more about our work at www.laurahealingwithspirit.com. Become a Patreon member. Memberships start for free. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. If there are episodes or content you want me to consider for future episodes, please share in the comments. I do reply to the comments in the comment section. So until next time, have a good day. We'll see you the next time of Triggers in Spiritual Medicine. Thank you for joining us.